Hey, welcome out to the channel. And if this is your first time here, then welcome. I've been doing a lot of focus on helping people in clinic detox from the spike protein. And I've been kind of sharing what I've been doing here on this channel and a lot in my members only area, which is Health Hub. If you're here, you might be noticing that you have been getting different illnesses and that you've been getting sicker more than usual, or you might notice that there's been some changes in your health. I've got to say, these last 3 years of the pandemic, it has changed our immune system. And one of the key drivers of that may be the spike protein. Well, let me first bring you up to date on why the spike protein is a problem and why it's something that we want to, stay abreast of and really be conscious of how much exposure we're getting to that spike protein. And that spike protein, it's that little hook that sits on the surface of the virus. And what it does, it attaches to our cells and allows the virus to inject itself into our cells. On every coronavirus, you'll have that kind of hook. It's just that the hook on this one is really unique. It has some really unique functionality. And if you're curious about the specifics of that, well, check out my episode, The 5 Ways that the Spike Protein Can Damage Your Body. What I wanted to talk about here is that this spike protein, it's a little bit different than the normal flu or cold spike protein. And in a normal flu or cold, our cells, they get infected with a flu virus or they get infected with with a cold virus, and our immune system wraps itself around it, consumes that cell, kills it, and eliminates it from our body. And then we wake up, we're fine, and we go on our merry way. What's different about this? This virus, this spike protein, it attaches to the body, it injects the virus. Our immune system will try to wrap around it and will try to eliminate it, but it does something very different. It doesn't just infect our cells, it actually causes damage in our body. So, the first time that I was truly exposed to the type of damage that this does to our body is through that Muddy Waters report from the Senate. The Senate had commissioned an 18-month study to research the origins of COVID and to look at all the research out there and come to some sort of conclusion on what was happening with this virus. That study focused on the spike protein because of some of the unique features of that spike protein is what was making this virus so dangerous. And, as the research goes on, it appears that that might be part of the problem with some of these longer term symptoms that we're experiencing. If we look at what the Muddy Waters report, one part of the Muddy Waters report that I thought was really interesting is they said that this virus has more adverse, and they really meant the spike protein because they were talking about the spike protein. It has more adverse effects on the cardiovascular system than any of the other coronaviruses. So it has more problems or causes more damage to our heart and our blood pressure than any of the other coronaviruses. And then they also added that it has this weird clotting function that's really distinct from all the other viral illnesses. So it has this other kind of superpower of causing this abnormal clotting in our body. So that was what the Muddy Waters report said. And then as this whole pandemic continued on, we saw that there's more and more research that's coming out. And you know what they don't focus on? They don't focus on the virus. What they do focus on is a spike protein. There was a study done by the American Health Association. We found direct evidence that the spike protein from this virus is toxic to the heart muscle cells. Not that it caused damage, that it's literally toxic to heart muscle cells, that the spike protein is toxic to the muscles of our heart. And I thought that was a really strong statement. And what they found in their research is that not only did it cause the heart to dysfunction, it enlarged the heart and it caused all this inflammation in the heart. Here's another one. This one was really interesting because it was talking about our brain. And a lot of us have experienced cognitive issues, right? After the spike protein, either we get more brain fog or we get almost dementia-like symptoms, or our personality starts to change. And, those are kind of signs that there's changes going on in your brain. Well, this research study found that, yeah, the spike protein was collecting inside the brain. So we didn't really know that it could cross the blood-brain barrier in the brain, and this study really shows that it does. And they also found out that it didn't have to do it by crossing the blood-brain barrier. They found that the spike protein can drill through the skull and get into the brain. That's a really unique feature. This was one of the initial studies done back in 2021. So in 2021, they actually were doing research on, does the spike protein need the full virus to cause damage, or can that spike protein all by itself cause this kind of damage? And what they found in a study from the Frank Reedy Research Center for Bioelectrics at Old Dominion University, what they found is exposure to the spike protein, just exposure to the spike protein, can produce the same symptoms that you get from the COVID-19 infection. And his exact quote was, "Our findings show that the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein causes lung injury even without the presence of the intact virus." So the spike protein all by itself can cause similar lung injury that we get in the full infection. There was another study that they found that the spike protein can, and this was, they weren't even using the full spike protein on this study. On this study, they were just using subunit 1. So if you watch my 5 ways the spike protein can damage your body, there's 2 subunits in the spike protein, subunit 1 and subunit 2. Subunit 1 is getting a lot of attention because of some of the unique features that is in that subunit. And this study took subunit 1 to see if just being exposed to subunit 1 could cause damage in the body. And what they found is that it did cause damage in the lungs, and it caused this thrombosis type of inflammation in the body. So now I would like to talk more about that subunit 1, but I don't think that would be allowed on this type of platform. So if you want to see more about this study and that subunit 1, check out Health Hub, my members only area, and I will talk more in depth on that, on this subunit 1 in there. I don't think the virus is important. I really think it's the spike protein. There's another thing that we learned from the initial infections. We figured out that this disease likes a crowd. So we saw that in our larger cities that it really went rampant. In areas where people tended to congregate and be close to each other and continue to hack up the virus on each other, that caused much more damage than if you were out in the middle of nowhere. So it seems like this thing likes a crowd, and we're seeing a chronic low-level infection throughout the country. There's information coming out right now. The level in our wastewater is going up, which means that your exposure to the spike protein has a potential to go up. If you've been reading the newspapers, you can see that, yeah, the wastewater is showing that the level of COVID is going up. And we're even seeing the CDC's reporting that more tests are coming back positive. To put some more context around that, the CDC is saying that we're seeing an increase in hospitalizations, but that increase, it's a sixth of what it was a year ago. There's one other thing that I do is I watch what's going around the globe and see what's happening there, especially if they're getting a variant that's coming our way. And so I've been watching India because the variant that we have today is an XBB variant, and that variant was going through India back in April. And this article does a really great job of summarizing what they saw. They saw within a really short time period of just a little over a month, they went from 100 cases a day to 10,000 cases every day. So this XBB, incredibly contagious, caused a lot more positive tests. But what they didn't see is they didn't see an increase in hospitalizations. They didn't see an increase in deaths or demand for oxygen or intensive care units. The article said one more thing. It said that they thought the country might be entering an endemic phase. So when something's endemic, it means that it's going to have this constant presence in the community. And that differs from a pandemic because in an endemic, the virus is going to be somewhat contained. It's not going to be spreading out of control, and it's not going to be stressing the healthcare infrastructure, but it is always going to be present. Let's say that all this research is true. And let's say that the spike protein is a problem. Then you might see that the longer you're exposed to it, the more damage it does to your system. And is that part of why we saw like these relatively mild infections, like the RSV getting so severe last year, or bronchitis symptoms suddenly getting so severe and people going septic with that, ending up in ICU? There's been so much misinformation, misdirection, refusal to release information. So we're really kind of left on our own trying to figure out how to navigate this. One of the things I started noticing in clinic this week is I'm going to call it like the third wave. I wasn't really sure that this wave was going to come up, and I had even started to think that it wasn't. I was like, oh, maybe we're over this, even though we're seeing an increase right now in the infection rate in the United States. One of the strengths of Chinese medicine is that they take all those symptoms that Western medicine says is non-specific. So they can't do anything until you get a serious disease, because all those symptoms that you get beforehand, you know, they could explode into any number of diseases, right? Well, in Chinese medicine, they actually look at each of those non-specific symptoms and they identify the underlying organ, body part that's having dysfunction or that's being impacted by whatever's going on in your body. So when you go into Chinese medicine, the practitioner is able to look at where you are right now, which hopefully is before you have disease, and help you identify where you're seeing some weaknesses in your body and how you can address those. So what I saw in clinic this week, which kind of took me by surprise, is some of my really healthy clients came in with subtle lung symptoms. And so what would those symptoms be? I will tell you, metallic taste in the mouth. That's a key lung symptom. And it seems to happen in the morning, waking up between 3 to 5 a.m. That's a lung symptom. What about the shoulder pain? That shoulder pain can be a lung symptom. And I've been talking about that here, I think on this channel. I've definitely been talking about it in my blog, and I definitely talk about it in Health Hub. But that shoulder pain, it starts in your left, always starts in the left. And it can get so severe that you can no longer lift your arm. It's like you've lost all the muscle tone in that arm. That's the lung channel. And just so you know, part of that lung channel comes up over your shoulder and down down your arm into your hand. So, and it doesn't come down your arm in the back here. It comes right through here where most of the people are experiencing the majority of their issues, right through like that. So that's another symptom. Now, talking with people, that they get a little exhausted talking to people and they get out of breath and they might start sweating, like it might feel like you have a hot flash going on. That's another symptom, very lung symptom. So just this week, I started seeing people who look super healthy coming in with these lung symptoms. They're showing that there's something going on with the lungs. So I think we're in a third wave now of individuals who are going to have weird health symptoms. I don't know how those would progress without detoxing the lungs, because we're detoxing the lungs. Hey, if you've been wondering if maybe the spike protein is impacting your health, well, I've got a free download that you can get that can help you understand some of the different ways that the spike protein might show up in your body and impact your health. If you're curious and want to get that free download, click on the link at the end of this video. So that's for you. Keep it in mind. There's some ideas of what you might experience if you're experiencing that. You know, the other thing that might happen is coughing, or you start getting congested, the sinus issues, the allergies, that they're more severe this year than any other year, or that it's your first year for getting allergies. So those are all different signs of what could be considered lung issues. Okay, I don't know where this is going. I don't know if any of us knows where this is going. You take care, and until next time, I'll catch you on the other side.